Welcome to Business Unusual, Prospecting Through Uncertainty. And I'm excited to have you for our webinar today. We've got an extra special guest, Angela Kreps, who's going to be sharing a bit of her career journey and the lessons learned. I am managing partner of SalesWorks. My name is Brendan Filbert, and my job all day, every day, is helping people find and secure their next opportunity, whether that's their next perfect client or whether they're looking to transition in their career, maybe move into gig work or begin a consulting practice. I'm here to help with that. Now, I am going to do just a really quick introduction of Angela and leave it to her to really explain what she's doing in her current role. But I met Angela several years ago when she was leading a local organization that worked in the biotech and bioscience industry. And Angela is a phenomenal connector and thought leader and just an incredible human being. And I am so excited I've learned so much from her over the years, and I'm delighted to also share her wisdom with you this morning. So Angela, share with us a little bit about what you're doing in your current role. And then I'm going to ask you to expand a little bit on your journey. But let's start with where you're at now.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to chat, and hopefully I might be able to share some insights that might be helpful for some of you who are going through your own personal career pivots. When I talked with Brendan, what I'm doing right now, I'm the chief connector for a company called Aspire Wealth Partners. We are an RIA, Registered Investment Advisor. I've been a client of the firm for more than a dozen years. And what I found was that the clarity that it provided for my husband and me as we went through some of these transitions, just to stay on track, but also just a little bit of peace of mind that it gave me. When I'll tell you the story that's probably the most impactful. They kept our marriage together. We went in for a meeting, and my husband had decided, without me realizing it, that he wanted to become a stay-at-home dad. And he wanted to take a super early retirement from one of his companies. And it just, it hit me like, bam, how the heck is that going to happen? And, am I going to have to replace all of his income? And that's not what I signed up for. Well, I thought we were supposed to be doing this together, everybody carrying their own weight. And then it also hit me like, okay, so I'm the rainmaker. And it was just an incredibly difficult moment of realization that it's all going to be on me, whether or not our family is going to be, cared for. And like I said, we were in a meeting, and our wealth manager is Matt Starkey, and he basically just put it into motion. He said, well, let's just run the numbers. Here's what the numbers look like. And in order for you to be on target where you want to be, you're going to have to make X amount of money every year with 85% certainty. You can't be 100% sure what the markets are going to do. You can't have that. But it just was a feeling of relief. And it helped us focus then. I got to focus on what I wanted to be doing to make my number. And then I could take my energy away from sort of those really negative, destructive emotions that were the challenging ones, about worry and concern. My grandpa told me one time, I would think I was early in college, that worrying doesn't do anything except for take days off the end of your life. But I still have to remember that lesson so many times, and this was one of those moments. So when I left my last interim gig, I decided to join Aspire just because I believe in what they do. And I think it fits in really nicely with my desire to pay it forward and just help people become the best version of themselves so that they can achieve extraordinary results. And anytime I've managed a team of people, that's what I focus on. I try to help people figure out where they can best serve themselves. And by identifying where you're strong and powerful and focusing on how you can accomplish work with those skills, everybody wins. because you're serving the best part of you. You're serving your organization with those things. And so now I have an opportunity to do that every day. So I meet with people and try to help them identify what connections I might be able to make for them to help them reach those goals. So
that's exciting. Now, tell us a little bit about your career journey.
that's
an interesting evolution.
it's been an evolution. People, a lot of times people are a little bit shocked about my career journey. Kind of just totally makes sense for me because I was the one living it. But I think on the outside it does seem a little bit unusual. I'm going to break my career journey into 3 sections. The early stages, I was in the banking and tax and compliance industry. So I started out working for a bank in Wichita right out of college. I had a journalism degree from Kansas State University and went into a bank. And this is back when banks, this was the early 90s when banks were just figuring out what sales was. And they actually made me their first sales officer at Intrust Bank in Wichita. And they gave some incredible sales training to me, and it was a remarkable time. I was able to manage people. I think one of the things that I was really shocked by was how much responsibility they gave to somebody who, was just fresh right out of college. But I was able to learn a lot, and I was able to have really great mentors around me. And when I left there, I went to a banking consortium and helped implement some of the same projects at a bigger, in a bigger scale. And then it was there that I was found by the great folks at ADP. And I joined ADP and was a producer for ADP for almost 10 years. And it was just a fluke networking that someone was looking for the first CEO of BioKansas, and that's how I ended up moving from ADP to BioKansas. But I don't think that I would have been open to that opportunity if something hadn't happened to me personally. It was about a year before I left. My daughters and I were in a rollover car accident. We were on the way to visit my mom and dad and my sister, and we were going to have a family meeting. We're going to have a weekend to spend together. And we were on a small 2-lane highway, and the car coming toward me entered my lane, and we were coming upon a bridge with the side rails. So I didn't have anywhere to go. So it's one of those things, in just a split second, you make a decision. I made this decision to just keep going and try to stay as close to the side of the guardrail as I could. We made impact and ended up having rolling over, and we all walked away from that accident just by the grace of God. And I had one of those moments, and I felt like I was supposed to be open to doing something different. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what it was, but I just needed to be open. And so when this networking opportunity came at me, it was kind of like, I don't know how that fits, but I'm going to be open to it, and I'm going to listen. And then I'm going to think about my strengths and what I might be able to give to this other role and see how it fits. And so we had several conversations. I was, quote unquote, the out of the box candidate. They were looking at a lot of PhD scientists to lead the organization. But what they ended up deciding is that they needed somebody who had some sales expertise, because it was something, the bioscience initiative was something that a lot of people in Kansas just weren't very familiar with. And we had to gain agreement for policymakers to support the initiative, because it was a fairly big spend. It was a lot of money that was being dedicated to a relatively burgeoning industry. So there were some really good stakeholders in the industry that were here, but in order to get it to really grow, take root and grow, we needed a lot more activity. And so we needed to make investments, and there were some new investment strategies on the economic development side. We kind of had to get people on the same page. And that was a really exciting and fun 10 years of my life being involved with biosciences. You know, my dad was a pharmacist and my mom was a math and science teacher, so I already kind of understood the industry, but I had a lot to learn, obviously. And that was the exciting part of it too. I just believe that if we can be super engaged in lifelong learning, we're going to get so many more opportunities in front of us
Well,
because we're curious.
and you were there at such the foundational stage of where biotech and bioscience was really emerging and taking shape as an industry and as the industry that is up and coming. And you had opportunity to engage with so many community leaders and help create policy. And there were just so many massive accomplishments that you made, but you also had a life. So tell us a little bit about what made you make the decision that you were going to step away from that and do something different.
Yeah, I mean so it was during that 10-year period, so in that middle chunk of time that we're talking about here, that my husband decided to become a stay-at-home dad. And we had 3 children at home at the time. You know, we're down to 2 now, but yeah, life is busy and there's a lot going on, especially with some of the responsibilities there was a lot of high profile work. And so you were, I guess I felt like I was involved in a lot of stuff that I had to learn how to do that I didn't know how to do. And I had to rely on a lot of great people that would take me under their wing and help me, teach me, and bring me along with them in the process. But like you said, there were also a lot of things we were doing for the first time, all of us. And so we were sort of all learning together. And I think anytime that you're involved in politics, unless you're a professional politician, you're going to have those moments where you just, you know, they say you don't want to watch the sausage getting made.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. It was like, I didn't realize that that's the way it worked. And I didn't realize that that's how deals got done. What I did realize is that I didn't want to become a professional politician. And what I did realize is that that was a whole different level of stress that was so public and so pervasive. You had to be thinking about it almost all the time. And it's, I can understand how people have a little bit of trouble being human when they're in that kind of a cycle, just because of just the struggle. I can empathize with them. So it was, I guess, to answer your question, it was it was just one of those moments when my my brother had passed away, and then my dad passed away, and my mom was having some health concerns, and I didn't want to look back and wish I would have paid attention. So I went to my board of directors and I said, you know, I think I need to make a change. I think I'd like to start a company and I'd like you to become my first client and I'd like to help you find my replacement. And that's how we did it. And so I retired without planning to retire, but I just didn't know what it was going to look like because I didn't know what we were dealing with my mom's health problems. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do, that I wanted to take the time to figure it out so that I could then move into whatever my next thing was without even really knowing what it was going to look like. And that's just turned into sort of this third tranche that I'm talking about. So I started out in banking, tax, and compliance, spent about 10 years there, spent 10 years in the biosciences, and I've spent the last 6 or so years um, just doing a variety of different things as a consultant and sometimes producer. I think most of us are always going to be in a producer role of some, some way. And I think because I grew up with a sales background, I like being a producer. I like creating value, and I like helping people find what they need to solve a problem. And that's what I think sales is. And so that's what I've been doing. I spent the first couple of years in a host of different little gigs. So I helped Bio find their next CEO. That took several months, and then helped the new CEO transition into that role. And that wasn't a full-time job. That was when I was trying to figure out what was going on with my mom. And then once we did figure it out, then I started looking for, what would potentially be a more full-time role. And so I spent 4 years with Sekisui Xenotech, and that was a really remarkable, wonderful time of building a sales organization within that contract research organization, and got to see and meet so many amazing people doing drug development work. Got to meet with a lot of the clients and help them strategize on their plans for getting through the drug development process, and having Xenotech, assist them with some of those steps along the way.
And that role you did as a fractional operations, or were you there as interim? What structure did that role take for you?
That was an interesting one, because I went in as a consultant, and I was just filling a gap. They needed somebody to help with managing their sales process. They hadn't really set up a process. So I went in and helped them work on their Salesforce, the CRM, and how to use the CRM. We had spent so much time with Salesforce at ADP and investing in a sales process by, utilizing Salesforce. So it was something I was familiar with. And because we needed a CRM when I was at Bio, that's the one that we put in place and used, was Salesforce. So I wouldn't say that I'm a power user by any stretch of the imagination, but I knew how it worked, and I knew how the system could work to help them build a process. So that was my first role with Xenotech, was just to help them get a sales process in place. But then, as things change within organizations, you're there. And when you're there, you step into other interim roles, and that's exactly what happened. So I became their vice president of commercial operations, and then in addition to being responsible for the product side of the business, I became responsible for the service side on the business development and commercial operations aspect. So not on service delivery, but on customer acquisition. And we were able to, set up and expand the sales team in different countries. So there's a lot of travel involved. And so the job became like bigger and bigger.
That's exactly what I was just thinking about, how you started out and you were going to be stepping back and, taking a little bit of a breather and focusing on life. And it sounds as if you ended up in another role that ended up being as big and almost as challenging as what you had at Bio.
Yeah, it definitely was. What I found fascinating, and what was just incredibly interesting, were the multicultural aspects of it. Because I'd just always been a pretty domestic person at that point. I'd done some international travel for pleasure, but I didn't really understand anything about international commerce and what it takes to do business with other countries. So I had to figure out the Japanese American trade agreement, and I had to figure out, how to do business in China. And I ended up traveling to some places where, English wasn't the primary language, and that's the only language I spoke. And so learning about how to do business with so many different cultural challenges. That was so much fun. I loved it, but it was really encompassing. And so, when when my mom started to have some more, going through a different stage again, I just knew that it was a bigger job than, I needed to be in.
Now, when you secured that engagement, were you working as an independent consultant? Were you a 1099, or did you secure it as a full-time or an interim gig where you were W-2'd?
That was the interesting thing. So I went in as a consultant, um, but I tell you what, the leadership of that organization was just so thoughtful. They really wanted me to look at what would be best for me. If they were going to be spending about the same amount of money, it didn't really matter to them. It mattered like what would be better for me. So I ended up becoming a full-time employee because that structure was better for me. I could make bigger contributions on the 401k and some of those things that would be longer payout. It all comes back to my financial planner. I basically just asked the question. I said, if I could do this way, or if I could do it this way, what's going to be better for me? And that's interesting. The work that we choose to do is the biggest the way that we can influence, our future and the achievement of our future goals. So, it's been interesting to have my own shingle and get paid, a rate of pay, but then also to work for some other organizations who, can help you reach some of your longer term goals and objectives. And I think it's, in the first two tranches, so in that, banking, tax and compliance, and then if I roll at bio, I I guess I really was thinking about the more traditional view of your job and your career, where you look at two things. What am I going to get paid? And what's my title? It's sort of those are the things that are important to you.
Mhm.
But when I made that switch away from bio, it was purely for personal reasons. Is because I wanted to do something, I wanted to feel a certain way in the future, not look back and have regrets. And that didn't have anything to do with status or how much I got paid in the moment. So it was just kind of a different lens. And I think people are starting to look at work this way, looking at what is your work-life balance? What is it that you need in order to be your best person? What is it that you need to provide for your family? You got to take care of yourself first.
Put the oxygen mask on first.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what great lessons. And what I do want to make sure that I come back to just to confirm. So it sounds as if throughout your career evolution, there have been the God winks, or those moments where there's something that happens that makes you stop and take stock of where you're at and what you're doing and what your life needs are. How often would you recommend that someone actually runs that, I don't know, emotional balance sheet on that career life satisfaction versus what you're doing now, and determine whether or not there needs to be a shift made?
I think it probably varies by person, but I think certainly when a transition happens. So if you're seeing a change in your health, if you're seeing a change in your emotional health, if you're having a change in your family status, so like if you're getting married or getting divorced, or if you are having children or your children are leaving, or those are events that maybe about. Sometimes we don't know about these kinds of transitions in our lives, but if you do know about it, it's coming, then you can have a little bit of time to plan for it. Because I think in those transitions, it's a really great baked in opportunity to evaluate. You may not know what you're going to look like on the other side of it, but you know that you're in a transition, and that's a great time for an evaluation. It was probably harder to not have the CEO title than I thought, when I look back at it. It was like making the decision to leave that job was made for personal reasons. But then there was this emotional baggage, like, how do I define myself? Who am I if I'm not the person that I was? Well, I am, but I don't have the same title. So I wasn't expecting that to be part of the baggage that I had to deal with in this third tranche. And it is, it's real, because it's a trade-off of having, all the responsibility and all the stress, and you're trading that for, I don't know, flexibility maybe, and you're also having to work harder in some respects because you're having to um, it's just a different level of work and commitment when you're not in the CEO role.
So how did you manage that brand, that evolution of moving from a CEO into transitioning and being open to where you were being led or called next?
That's a great question. I don't know that I'm necessarily an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination, but I did try to, there's the resume. Excuse me. Excuse me. So
Yes,
the
and
resume,
for everybody, Angela is in the midst of recovering from COVID. So we want to be very understanding, and by all means, drink a lot. Yeah, and it's non-alcoholic, I know. We haven't, it's not 5 o'clock yet. So
yeah. Um, I think the resume, of course, and then the LinkedIn resume, I tried to look at it a little bit the same way that I look at matching people up with services. You try to look for the value. So what value do I have intrinsically as a worker? What skills can I bring in a general sense that could help an organization reach their goals? And I learned something in that first tranche when I was at ADP. That ADP was really good at investing in training, and one of the training systems that we used was Strengthsfinder. And I would recommend, if for anybody who is on this or listening to it, if you haven't done that, and I think it's called Clifton Strengths now, but it's basically an instrument. I think it's, I don't know, $20. You buy the book and you get to take the instrument.
I think it's Gallup now, isn't it? Gallup.
It
That's
started out as Gallup. I think someone else bought it now. I think it might be Clifton, but it did start out as a Gallup organization, a Gallup tool. So you take this instrument, and basically what you're finding. The theory is that if we can all focus our time on being better at what we're already good at, it's like an Olympic athlete, right? If you can work on honing in on improving what you're already good at, you're going to be incrementally better than someone who tries to fix the stuff that they're not good at. So it's like,
and
how do you think?
mediocrity everywhere.
Exactly. Now, if you're going to be a generalist and that's your goal is to be a generalist and you want to be good at, all of these things at a proficiency level, then maybe that's different. But for me, it was a philosophy that I just loved. I took it, I grabbed it, and so I have, since that first tranche, just focused my energy on getting better at what I'm good at, just trying to improve, getting better at what I'm good at so that I can provide more value to the organizations and the people I serve. So I do that now. So I'm strategic, I'm a relator, I'm an achiever, I'm future. So I know what my strengths are, and I just try to improve on those areas. So when I went back through my resume, my LinkedIn, I tried to focus on those areas where I could show the tangible results from those strength areas, so that those would be the ones that were highlighted. Because I think I do the best work for organizations when I'm in my strength places. So if I could highlight those things, then those would be the places that would stand out. So that when people are finding me, those are the things that that they would see. And that seems to have been a pretty good strategy. Um, I, I I don't really want to say what I'm about to say, but it's the truth, so I'm going to say it.
Well, say it.
I have been really lucky with people finding me. I I can't really say that I had some grand strategy or plan for putting myself into the right positions because it wasn't by my own orchestration. It was by the gifts of other people connecting me and finding me. So,
Well, I'm going to challenge you here just a little bit because being a part of this journey from the connecting with you back in bio and also watching your evolution and participating in a portion of this journey as you were reimagining where you were going next and what that was going to look like. What you do incredibly well that you're not highlighting is the fact you do remain connected with influencers and with amazing people that create those opportunities that you're talking about most of these opportunities that you have ended up in because what may seem like a happy accident to you, you've been very intentional on putting yourself out there and engaging in networking and connecting with influencers and with people throughout your career that have opened doors for you before. And you've been so incredibly talented at creating emotional equity within those relationships. And that's one thing that I do want to highlight about what I've participated in of that journey. And because I really think everybody here in our call today needs to recognize that same ability. If you think about what you've accomplished and all the lives that you've touched and the people who have participated in or in some way benefited from your accomplishments or achievements, what you do really well is go back and allow them to help you. And then also continue to invest in those relationships.
well, I'm flattered. I appreciate you saying those very kind things. I do think that I value people and I try to help. And anytime I've gone through a transition, I do make an intentional effort to help others. So, helping people that I'm in a group with, helping them, achieve their goals. So, whether they're working directly with me or if it's someone just reaching out and asking for help, I'll meet with just about anybody because I value the help that has been given to me and I want to pay it forward. But I also think that sometimes we just need, just one little something to get us through to the next thing. And a lot of times I think that's a connection. So,
And you're good about seeking out the catalysts that can make that next connection for you and being open to what happens within those conversations. And not the thing that I do want everybody to also recognize about this is that while you have intention about where you're going and what you're doing, you you're good about letting a little bit of the how evolve so that the opportunity can become what the potential is, not based on a preconceived notion. Because it sounds as if with so many of the roles that you've gone into, it's been even if you go back to your early stages of your career, you were immediately over your head and then you figured it out. And then you moved into bio and you were over your head and you figured it out. And then you were with Xenotech and you were over your head and you figured it out. But not very many people are willing to take that leap. It's a case of it's almost like you've evolved within every role and expanded your strength and your skill set so much. And it's one of those things that I think a lot of us, if we're looking for an opportunity, we look at something based on what we've already done, not based on what we want to do or what we get excited about or someplace where we can grow. So
that's,
how would you give us advice about that?
well, That's a really good point. You know, and I've done a little bit of research on this because I'm the mother of 3 daughters. And I think women are particularly challenged in this area. And I don't know why, for whatever reason, this has never been a problem for me. I don't think I have to have done it in order to be qualified to do it. And I think men in general, at least this is what the data show, that, you know, men will read a job description, and if they can do, half of it, they think they might be an ideal candidate. Women in general, this is what the data show, that when we look at a job description, if we can't do 75 to 80% of it, we won't consider ourselves as a good candidate for that role. And I don't know, I've just never seen
right
that as a limitation.
Because you brought something up, that consider yourself an ideal candidate. There's so much that comes to that in terms of just the confidence and how you carry yourself and present yourself and your capabilities. And that's huge.
All right, so I'm going to let you in on one of my little personal tricks or secrets. I don't know. It's the way I talk to myself. And I think, and I try to do this with my daughters, is help them see that the narrative that we have with ourselves is going to be more powerful than anything else. Skills, capabilities, anything. The way we talk to ourselves is what is going to carry the day and make the biggest difference as to whether or not you're happy, whether or not you get stuff done, and whether or not you achieve your potential. And what I mean by that, if you'll think about it, and it probably came to me because of all of the work that I've done in sales. When you're talking to somebody, I've done a lot of cold calling in my life. When you're talking to someone, you don't know what they're thinking. You only know what they're saying. And so many times we put a narrative attached with what people say that like we understand what they're thinking, but we don't. So what I mean by that is when you talk to someone and they say whatever it is they say, like maybe you're not an ideal fit or whatever, we don't know what they're thinking. So here's what I choose to do. I choose to have them, what I tell myself, they must be thinking, I have the potential to do that, but I'm not there yet. But they see me as having the potential to do it. And that's why they said what they said. Instead of hearing it and thinking, oh, well, I'm not an ideal fit for this job, so they must be thinking about, moving on and there's somebody else. I don't think about it that way because you don't know what they're thinking. So I choose to create a narrative where it's the best possible outcome for me because I want to present myself in the best possible way to see if that is something I want to do, if I could do it, and whether or not I can bring value to that situation. But I won't ever be able to see that if I don't allow myself to be in the position to do it.
So you just go get it and then you figure it out.
We're capable of doing so much more than we ever thought possible. But we just have to believe that we can. And then we need to go and get the skills that are required to do it. There are people who will help you in practically every situation. You just have to believe that you can do it.
How exciting. I think that's probably one of the biggest gems that you've shared today, and you've shared a lot, but that's definitely one of the big nuggets that has come out of this. So talk to me now about your current role and where you're at. And also, I know you're a ninja on LinkedIn as far as making a lot of really good things happen throughout your career and where you're at now. I also want to get some tips on that from you. So, but first of all, talk to me about who you're serving now.
Yeah, well, I'm looking to help people who, are going through transitions. I think that's where I can deliver the most value as a coach, a consultant. And, if along the way, that also means that we can help you with building a financial plan and that you can see some of the benefits like I personally have received. There can't be a guarantee that, anyone's experience is going to be the same as what what I have, but I just believe that it's been really helpful for me. And so I can connect you with people that can do that. I'm not a financial planner. I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, but there are other people in the organization who are. So I can connect you with that. What I'm doing right now, I'm working on a series of webinars, and we had the first one we did 2 of them last year. I think I'd like to do 4 this year. The first one is scheduled for March 9th and 10th, and I'm doing it with our buddy Dan Stout.
Yes.
And yes, and I think what we'd like to do is, as a gift to you, Brendan, and your network of people, we'll offer a way for you to get in there free. It's a $175 course, and it is, like I said, March 9th or 10th. It's a 2-hour session. Dan is going to be sharing your DISC profile. So a DISC assessment is included with this, and you can get it free because, Brendan, there's a code you will enter when you register. So knowing what your DISC profile is in and of itself is helpful. But as many of us are working remotely, the understanding of your DISC profile in a remote environment allows you to see a whole bunch more. So you can understand what your strengths are in working remotely, but also so you can be aware of what your challenges and limitations could be, so that you can get some really actionable insights as to how you might be your best self working in a remote environment. And if you understand what other people's DISC profiles are, how to manage and work with other people so that you can bring out the best in them. So Dan's going to be covering that. And then my portion of the session is just going to be on navigating this caring for an aging loved one. How do you get through all of the stuff when you're caring for someone? So in my situation, my learning has been through my mom. Learning about advance directives, learning about powers of attorney, learning about estate planning, and what are I've put together a blueprint that I'll share, and it's a way that you can do it for your loved one. If you have an aging parent, or if you have, someone else in your family that is going through that, it could be a tool that can help you. I'm just paying it forward, just sharing my learnings so that other people might have an easier way, because it's been really difficult. It's been really, really challenging. And so I've pulled together resources that I've benefited from, and I've added some of my own insights, like a simple thing like a medication log has been so helpful, just so that I can keep track of all the different changes in the medication. I know exactly what the dosing is. When we go to a doctor's appointment, you have to, create that and fill out that information. Saves a lot of time, but it also helps for others who are assisting with the giving of care. And that's one clue, is that self-care, you got to take care of yourself. And sometimes that means accepting help from others. The other part of your question was how I'm using LinkedIn.
Yes.
So I think someone had mentioned earlier about having Sales Navigator. I'm a believer in Sales Navigator because of the broader the search you can do. I am grateful that my network is just a really beautiful big network. I know a lot of people, and people have been kind and generous with, helping me get connected with others. But Sales Navigator will allow you to go to your connections and to be able to search for the people that you're looking for. So there are advanced search capabilities. Also, Sales Navigator gives you the ability to do more InMail. So if you're not connected to someone, you can still send them a message. And I have just found so much success in making connection with people through direct messages, just sending messages through LinkedIn. I do a lot of connecting of people that way, putting people in touch with each other. Usually when I meet with someone, I'll try to identify somebody in my network who might be of value to them, and then I connect them with that person, and I do that right there in LinkedIn. But I also ask people for appointments. And I try to send out about 20 to 30 of those connection requests every day when I'm in I call it a surge cycle. That's when I'm trying to do lots of meetings with people. And what I found is that, you're not always going to make a connection with somebody. And you're not always going to get a meeting. But I think over the course of 6 months, I was able to get about 300 meetings, and it was all through using Sales Navigator and direct messaging.
Well, the other thing that I want to point out, and I did pull up your profile and I'm sharing the screen, what you have done a really, really good job with is you speak well to the value of why someone would want to connect with you. So you've done a phenomenal job up here with creating headlines that really demonstrate who you are as just an incredible human being, and the fact that you are a connector and you do focus on helping other people become their best self. And then you also speak a lot here. If you scroll down, and you do a lot in terms of posting. So that's something else that you do is, and I've shared the example many times about with LinkedIn, you're either going to create a billboard. The billboard is either going to be sitting in a cow pasture somewhere or a deer path that gets zero traffic, or you're actually going to create a 4-lane highway. And you've created an interstate past your profile because of posting and sharing valuable content, engaging with your audience, and continuing to push out those direct messages and connect with people. But the thing that's really important about what you're doing, and why I think it has worked well for you, just based on my knowledge of your approach and where you've won business, is you speak well to the connector and coach. There's definitely mutual benefit in meeting with you. And that's something I think a lot of us do minimize whenever we start thinking about putting together our profiles. We get all wrapped up in thinking about our professional accomplishments. We're all in that being, that who we are and what we've accomplished, versus the doing and why someone would want to know us. And that,
Well, thank you for that compliment, because that has been my goal. Is to try to, when I put something on my LinkedIn, I want people who are coming there to see what value I might be able to bring them, how I might help them, because that's all we're all looking for. We're all amazing people.
well, wait. You think we're all looking for that based on your approach and your psychology and just how you're wired. Not everyone is that way. And you are an extraordinary individual in how you approach relationships, with truly looking at that emotional equity and that mutual benefit and everything that you bring. So not everyone does that. And you've given several clues. And this is what I hope everybody is picking up from this. You have several clues throughout your profile that demonstrate that you are truly about that. So it's not just a be, it is an also do. And you're demonstrating that through your profile. So that's something that you're doing a phenomenal job with. And then you reach out and you have the messages, and then that is part of the doing. And then the engaging in relationships and fostering those and supporting people. It's something that you're doing with intention, and it's creating some pretty amazing opportunities. And I just want to highlight that with what you're doing. So you got a lot of good stuff going on, girl.
I appreciate that. I need it, man. I need all the help I can get.
Don't we all? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, and I want to make sure that I get us wrapped up. So I've been doing screen shares. Let me also real quickly pull this back up on the flyer for the session that Angela and Dan are going to be offering. I will also share this via email I'll send the links out with the recording for today to our list of folks that registered for today. And then I do want to encourage those of you that have joined live. Angela is just an amazing person, and I encourage you to follow her at the very least. And you do that by going to her profile on LinkedIn, and then you can connect and follow so that you have the opportunity to follow and actually leverage what she's doing, kind of get an idea of a virtual mentorship almost. Because the thing that I want to just make clear, and I talked about it a little bit before we got started, there are a lot of people who can advise and guide you on your career path and on your journey as it evolves. And they're either going to do this as the person that says, I'm the coach, and I'm the coach because I've gone to school, or I've attained a certification, or I've had extensive training in how to do this. Or you do this as I am the person that's been in the trenches. I've done it. I've held that role within organizations. I've navigated that journey multiple times. Or you do this as I'm just a little bit farther ahead of you, and I can share with you a little bit about what I've learned. And you kind of have to pick which one of those perspectives that you want to take. But then my suggestion, based on what Angela has done incredibly well, and also what I see others doing, just when you are navigating your career evolution, is find the virtual mentors, find the people that are doing amazing things like Angela is accomplishing and will continue to accomplish in her career, and follow what they do and look at their journey and learn from the steps that they've taken and how they're positioning themselves to secure opportunity, and do the same thing with what you're doing, because there's just so much that you learn through, again, those other folks that are just a little bit farther ahead of you. So you have shared some great
older
information
with more gray hair.
No, not always that. Not always that. Because, it's funny. I worked with a business leader one time, and it was so funny because I asked him, I said, how long you been in business? And it was actually during like my second year of working as a consultant. And he said, how many years have I been open, or how many years have I actually been running my business? And I'm like, well, what's the difference? And he said, I've been open 23 years. He said, my problem is I repeated year 2 for 17 years. And I think a lot of us do that in our life and our career. We get stuck at these plateaus. And, you've just done a phenomenal job of, when you find yourself at a plateau, you step back and you're like, God's talking to me here about something, whether it's a car accident or whether it's a life transition, or your relationship is shifting, where your husband became stay-at-home dad. So many of those things, you step back and you use those as a reset moment. And I think a lot of us need to be more open to those resets. And it's funny because you and I, so our generation, the Gen Xers, it's a case of, we're in that 4.5 year, we kind of have a reframe or regroup. And I know you've had 10-year stints, but you've kind of shifted midway through each of those 10-year stints, kind of following the Gen X traditional path. And, it's interesting because now they're talking about how the Gen Ys are actually going to, or the Gen Ys and the millennials, it's shifting to where it's 2 years or 2.5 years that you're going to have those moments and those reframes. So that's great insight to share. All right, so I'm going to wrap us up and say thank you again, Angela. This has been absolutely phenomenal. We've enjoyed getting to know you. I'm going to also be sharing your LinkedIn profile so folks can connect with you. If you didn't get the chance to ask Angela any questions today, because I kind of got wrapped up in asking all the fun questions myself, do make sure that you reach out and connect with her, because she's an amazing human being and you'll love knowing her. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much. And remember, everyone, to get what you want, you must help others get what they want. Have a great day, and I wish you all good selling. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.